Welcome to From Stuck to Scale, growth strategies for small and mid-sized businesses, your guide to navigating growth, transformation, and success in today's ever-changing business landscape. Each week, we'll dive into proven strategies, real-world case studies, and actionable insights designed to help small and mid-sized business owners scale smart, lead stronger, and grow faster. Let's get you unstuck and on the path to sustainable, scalable success. Now your host, Julio Gonzalez.
Welcome back to From Stuck to Scaled, growth strategies for small and mid-sized businesses. I'm your host, Julio Gonzalez. Each week, we explore practical strategies, leadership insights, and real-world tools to help small and mid-sized businesses break through barriers and grow with confidence. Today, we're talking about authenticity as the North Star for your business. If you find yourself conflicted between purpose and profit, this may be the episode for you. Let's get started. My guest today is Jona Hernandez. I met Jona at the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. We had an incredible conversation at an event, and I quickly learned that he is an old ancient soul, one you don't find in many leaders of his age. Jona is a visionary leader, operations strategist, and the co-founder of Jim's Integrative Massage, a performance-driven wellness company bringing elite-level manual therapy to professionals, athletes, and corporate teams across South Florida. But Jona isn't just a growing business. He's embodying a movement. His leadership is anchored in the Resonant Way, a timeless path of faith and clarity and authenticity that has always existed. Now in alignment with his personal, definite purpose, Jona is organizing the Resonant Way into a lifestyle that empowers others to take full accountability for their path. His belief? If more people lived with the definite purpose, definite plans, and definite actions, the world would shift into a new frequency, one of authentic positivity and highest resonance. Jona, welcome to the episode.
Thanks for having me, Julio. This is amazing. I'm grateful to be here.
I'm excited for this conversation. As I said on the intro, I was so impressed with the conversation that we had at that chamber luncheon. I immediately knew that I wanted to have you on the podcast. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your business, and the Resonant Way.
Absolutely. So, I guess to start, I'll start with the business. I'm with Jim's Integrative Massage. It's a family business. So my brother is a licensed massage therapist. He's Jim. And it's a play on words, Jim's Integrative Massage, JIM. So he's been doing massage and body work for the better part of about 5 years. And for a while, let's just be real. All of our life, we've always been working together. Yeah. We've shared rooms, we've shared businesses, shared homes, and I'm very grateful to work with my brother. But I actually just recently started working with him here in the massage company, starting in 2025 in January.
Okay.
Right at the end of December 2024, he said, "Hey, look, I want to scale my business, and I have background in culture building, leadership, operations. I'm a very analytical person." So he's like, "Let me get you on, not just because you're family, but because I know that once we work together, we're going to build something great." So that's how it all started. That's where I'm at now. Me personally, I'm definitely an old ancient soul. I love how you said that. Actually, this is perfect.
I saw it, in you as we were having that conversation.
Yeah, thank you for seeing. But really, it's I'm really based all in resonance. I'm a mystic on Instagram. I'm Shaman Jona.
Okay.
I've caught a whole lot of flack for that. Actually, people are like, "You can't call yourself a shaman." But the reason I'm Shaman Jona is I'm all about mastering your own energy, and self-mastery is so important. And understanding that you are co-creating your life.
Absolutely.
It helps you take accountability for your life, and it helps you show up in a whole different way. So everything for me is resonance. Everything is vibration. Your thoughts, your actions, the things you keep around you, having plants, speaking to the way you speak to everything around you, it's all resonance, it's all vibration. So that's what the Resonant Way is. It's something that came to me really as a revelation I read a couple books that really sparked the thoughts. A couple Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe was a big one that started my whole thought process. I was like, oh my God, this whole world is interconnected in so many different ways,
It
and
is.
we are so much more than our bodies. And then I got into deeper leadership topics with Stephen Covey, and you would think that maybe they don't have much to do with each other, but since I was on this frequency of expanded consciousness, I was tying in Stephen Covey with Robert Monroe, and I was like, wow, okay, now I see that the world it grows once you expand the way that you see it.
It
You know,
does.
perception
Absolutely.
really is
Yeah,
reality.
it absolutely is.
So that's my background at first. I'm sure we'll get a whole lot deeper into many different things, but that's the background on myself.
Educationally, what is your background?
Educationally, I am all over the place, quite honestly. Just some college. Um, when I was in college, I was majoring in microbiology. I wanted to work with I wanted to work with stem cells and
Okay.
get deeper into just super scientific things. But then as I was going through college, I realized, you know what, this isn't for me. I got tied into the sales aspect, so I started going into sales. I enlisted in the military, so I joined the Army National Guard, and life was just a roller coaster of finding myself,
Mm-hmm.
really. And then out of the Army, it was customer service, sales, real estate, and then being an operations manager at Stretch Zone, which then made me realize, okay, I love leadership. I love teams. I'm a public speaker. I'm a Toastmaster. And every time I ever went to Toastmasters, people always walked up to me and said, "You're a leader. I hope you know that. You're a leader." And it really helped me realize, you know what? Like the way that you show up in the world, no matter what, actually, let me rephrase that. No matter what, there's somebody following you.
Absolutely.
Somebody's looking up to you, somebody's watching the way you move. So it's important that you watch the way you move because you're inspiring somebody, whether you know it or not, or somebody is taking and sponging in the way you live your life. So it's important to be a leader.
So I'm painting a picture here in my mind. Is the Resonant Way your philosophy? Did you develop that?
I mean, I can't take ownership for it.
Can we trademark it?
I think yes, I think it could be trademarked
We'll
because
have that conversation after the
right,
episode
I
then.
really do think so because it doesn't exist in the way that I have been organizing it, but it exists when you start looking at religion, any religion, and when you start looking at spirituality. The real big reason I started developing the Resonant Way was I was deep in the spiritual community because when I was younger, I was like, drop your ego. And it was very important. But my brother used to laugh at me. He was like, look, you need your ego. You need it. And I'm like, yes, but I have to release it. And that was my whole thought process. Release it, release it.
But there's the ego and then there's the ego.
Yes.
The drop your ego that your brother was telling you, I'm sure, was the uh, don't be a jerk ego, not the psychological ego.
Exactly. I then had to transform into understanding that you always will have ego.
Absolutely.
Your ego is your
It
self-identity.
is.
Your ego who I am here, that's my ego. So you can't drop it or else you can't cease to exist. You're going to exist every day and it's very important that you know who you are. So if you drop your ego completely and you live like a leaf in the wind, you're going to get caught in every single piece of current that is flowing in the air and you don't want that.
Right.
So when I got caught up in the spiritual community, I realized that everybody had a lot of ego, judgment, a lot of comparing, and that's when people would tell me, "Oh, you call yourself shaman," and I have been ridiculed, cut out of groups and communities solely just because of my Instagram handle, and people have
That's crazy.
asked me, "Why don't you just change it? Because you're such a cool person, and we would love you in this group, but you have to change your handle." And I'm like, no, if I have to change my handle to fit in with you guys, then obviously this isn't
It's the wrong
real
group.
spirituality,
Right.
because spirituality to me is full love, unconditional acceptance. And that just told me, no, this is wrong. But then I realized, okay, then if I don't align with the spiritual conscious community as it exists, and I don't align with people who are actually just full orthodox religious, then where do I fit in? And now I'm finding myself in this beautiful middle ground where I'm growing my self identity with real purpose,
Hmm.
understanding of my future vision, but I'm bringing God back into my life, and not in the way. Well, I mean, a lot of times if you talk to a spiritual person, you talk about bringing God into
Right.
your life, they might, oh, I don't like to bring in religion, and I think that's ridiculous. We need faith,
Hmm.
because I need to know that there is a beautiful future vision and there's a life waiting for me. And I can't do that if I think that I'm the only one that's making this happen. There's a reason you and I met
Absolutely.
at the lunch. There's a reason I'm here right now, and it's much more than just what I do the day before and the way I think when I get up. Those are very important aspects, but there's more to it. And that's why I started developing into the resonant way, to find something that is non dogmatic, that anyone can resonate with and connect with, and it'll help people be a more embodied version of themselves.
We are definitely going to have a conversation after this to get the resonant way formalized in some way for Jonah. I've had a couple of experiences in my life, and I won't go into it, in this video, but where I have made these very definite, vibration connections with people that have affected me both ways. I'm very empathic, I guess is the appropriate term. So I pick up all different types of energies,
Yeah.
and I've experienced both the very warm, positive, and some of that very negative that has completely impacted my ability to relate to those individuals. Um, how do you position that in a business leadership environment?
So I'll just take it back to how I positioned it with our business. Really, when my brother and I started working together, the first thing I asked him was, "Jim, do you have a business plan?" Which is funny. I mean, you have a business, you should have one.
Of
He's
course.
like, "No, I don't. I just give massages." I'm like, "Okay, so we need to create a business plan." And I look back at it almost every day, because it's not just uh I look back at that business plan almost every day, because it's not just something that is what we learn. Oh, the business plan is going to help you earn, get a loan one day,
And it's
or
your
work with
guidance
investors
and
and stuff like that. But for me, it's like a northern star,
yeah.
and I tie the resonant way into that by knowing our purpose. So our business's purpose is to help high performing leaders protect their longevity through clinical level expert manual therapy anywhere that they are. And I made that by sitting down with my brother and saying, okay, let's drill down. What's the most important thing in the business that if we took that away, we won't even be a business anymore. We can't function.
Right.
So we said expert level manual therapy. And we tied that in to being there at anywhere at any time for high performing leaders, because we wanted to niche and make sure that we know who our real demographic is. And drilling down on that purpose, just saying it out loud and writing it changed the game. I started meeting people, and immediately I just felt the resonance. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I know that you and I are going to work well together, or you're a great client for us, or maybe people who are going to work with us very well. So that's how it ties in so far into our business. And there's many other ways that it ties in, which I'm sure we'll also continue into.
So, what types of leaders are you working with, and how is your purposeful method helping them?
So the leaders that we're working with are busy professionals. Most times it's people who don't really have time for many things, or they're always on go, 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 rush, rush, rush. They're the type of people who don't actually tell anybody about their pains. So they're the suffer in silence kind of
Mm-hmm.
people. And they wear these responsibilities on their back. So it's not just business, it's family and everything in between that they're carrying on their back and just barreling through because they are the number one person that everyone's relying on to get things done. So we're there for them. And for them, it's much more than just body experience, which is great for them. We integrate neuromuscular therapy, myofascial release, stretch therapy, deep tissue massage, all while still building this trust element with them so that they're getting to know us. And in every session, they're looking forward to, oh, let me talk to Jimmy. I'm gonna share with him this. We're bouncing ideas off each other. And it's that purpose of helping them protect their longevity is something we're always drilling down. I always say it, massage is not a luxury.
I agree completely. I had a massage therapist who was focused, I guess, on Reiki.
Mm-hmm.
And once he would put a hand on me, it didn't matter what he was doing, he wouldn't let go. So if he needed to walk around the massage table, he would go hand over hand to always maintain that contact. And I could feel that. That was it was a connection, between us went beyond, the actual deep tissue um, portion of the massage. And that I it's hard to find that type of connection. And he had that, and he did a fantastic job, and he better be listening to the podcast. If I don't hear from him, I know I'm going to send him the link.
Right.
uh, I hear a lot, and we've talked about purpose. Companies talk about culture. You talk a little bit more about soul. So how do you relate, what your philosophies are, how you're running the business, to the broader culture that everyone talks about from a business perspective?
Absolutely. Well, to start, most companies, even though they talk about culture,
They don't have one.
they don't have one. Yeah. And or they have, every company has culture, but maybe it's not culture that they intentionally cultivated.
Very true.
Because in life, there's always something's gonna fall into
Mhm.
place. But if you didn't create the design for that, then it's gonna fall into some other place that you might not like.
100%.
You might have a culture of people talking behind each other's back, or not really listening or being resentful towards each other, and that's still culture.
Absolutely.
um, but the really big thing is being intentional with it. So tying in soul into culture, I think, is very important, because when you hire somebody, to know that they're a right fit, you should be able to share your culture with them, and it should really energize them and pump them up.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're like, okay, I want to work with you, not just because I'm skilled and I have the qualifitions, but because I know that working for this company is going to be amazing. For me personally, I'm value driven. So integrity is number one. Service, not in the sense of service as an exchange, but it's more service in the sense of giving. I
Absolutely.
have to give, so I will give to you. That ties into abundance. I want everybody within the organization to be thinking abundantly, because when we have an overflowing cup, we can give. But when we feel like we're lacking, how are we going to give? And especially when we're putting our hands on people, now we're taking it to an energetic level. And if you feel like you're lacking, that's not going to feel good energetically in a session.
Well, if it's not authentic, that will come through on the energy.
Yes.
It's kind of what you just said on the culture. A lack of a defined culture, you're going to get a culture that you may not like, if you're not approaching with the correct energy, you're going to get an energy, and it may not be the one that you that you want.
Definitely. And authenticity is so important, especially for me. That's my personal purpose is to ignite the flame of authenticity in every single person I meet. I want to empower others to live their life to their highest purpose, whatever that may be, with faith, with clarity, and full of love. Once, if I can do that for even 5 people, my life is fulfilled. But the goal is truly, I want to do that for thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
How do you reconcile, because you've mentioned faith a couple of times, and I think spirituality, how do you reconcile that with the world that we live in that is almost so anti-faith? How do you reconcile, your faith, your spirituality with today's, stock price driven business model, where we can't have faith? What would your recommendation be to a CEO that's trying to establish, a purposeful culture that is going to look at you and say, "I'm not going to bring faith into my company"? What would your recommendation there be?
I would start with a question, and I'd say, when you started your company, you took a leap of faith. You took a chance. And if you have even slightly successfully operating business, that means no matter what, you had people saying to you, "Oh, that's a bad idea. You're not going to succeed. Don't do that. Don't do this." And you still did it. How did that feel? That's faith. That's true faith, because you had a purpose, you had a outcome, and you went towards it at all costs. No matter what, you did it. So that was faith there. Why not keep it in the organization? Because if you can instill that within the organization, now the same exponential growth that took you from here, from no business at all to even an operating business, now in the organization is going to take you from an operating business to an extremely well performing business.
And to reinforce that point, I think, and I agree 100%. I think people get stuck in faith as a religion versus faith, the more dictionary based, which is a belief. I believe in you. I believe in the organization. I believe in what we're doing, having faith in what we're doing. And a lot of companies, I think, lose that faith in themselves because they fall back on, I have to get that next customer. I have to make that next sale. I have to raise prices. I have to give a discount, whatever that happens to be. And that gets in the way of the abundance,
Yes.
which is just going to bring that all to you anyways.
I so this reminds me, I was working with a gym owner, and he had purchased a gym not knowing what he
A
was going
gym
to
was.
do. Yeah, not even knowing, business ownership. And the big thing was, he purchased it with a real vision. He wanted to transform the gym into a spiritual place of elevated growth. So not just a gym, but a place for people to meditate. He always said, "I want this to be everyone's third place," which was a very beautiful idea that he had behind it. But as he started to try to implement changes, he was hit with adversity. "Oh, this gym is gritty. We've been here for 5 years already. We're not spiritual." And since he was hit with these kind of reactions, he took a pause and said, "You know what? I'm going to continue doing what the gym was and following this gritty vibe." Unfortunately, the gym did not stay operational. And I think the big reason is because he didn't follow his authentic soul. He purchased it as the new owner, very important. If you're going to make changes, shake the whole thing up and have complete faith. If people don't like it, that's fine. Let them leave, because they're making space for the people who should be here. And then they're going to bring their friends, and you're going to bring community. And that's faith. That's you. I would take it one step further than belief, because sure, someone's seen it on Instagram. Someone said you can't believe, if you have a belief, that means you actually don't know it. So you can't believe something you don't know. Because when I ask you if you can drive a car, you say, I know how to drive a car, not I believe I can drive a
True.
car. You know you could drive a car. So you should know that life is going to take care of you, that whatever you're going to do, even if you hit some type of adversity, you're going to know the best course of action and you're going to get to where you want to go. A full on knowing, which ties into maybe even visualization practices. Because then if you can see it, feel it, and understand it, Jose Silva,
Mm-hmm.
Bob Proctor, The Secret, all these people, they're trying to explain it to you. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If you can see it, feel it, and believe that you can do it, then you will succeed it. Just succeed in attaining that goal. So
Yeah, you're going way beyond um, authenticity. I mean, this is at an even higher level that I think a lot of people, need to look into. And I'll say it, and we'll put it in the show notes. Follow your Instagram, to learn more. But that's a whole other level. I think that
I agree.
companies are going to struggle,
Yeah.
to get to. But it's a critical, component. Absolutely.
And to take it back to authenticity, really, you don't get there until you know who you are. Because if you're going to make changes based off of, oh, I need to make that next sale, so my clients don't like this, or my current clients don't like this, so I have to change this. And when you keep making micro changes, you're not going to know what works,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to stray so far from what feels true to yourself that you're going to lose your drive in the business. And that's going to really affect you, because then if everyone in your organization can see and feel that the leader is burnt out, the leader is not following an authentic drive, then what are they going to do? They're following you. So you have to be authentic in what you're doing.
And that's a great point. Leading by example for me has always been critical. I would never ask, my staff or anyone around me to do something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself. A leader demonstrating, a higher purpose, a higher value, can absolutely bring along, their team. But there's always some difficult individuals. How would you address, that one person on the team that's just not a believer, doesn't buy into, the soul, being part of the culture? What would you suggest to that business leader?
If you have someone on the organization who's not buying in, then they need to be listened to. Because most times, when someone doesn't buy in, it's not because they don't resonate, or even someone could buy into your ideas and not believe or connect with them completely. But if they trust you, then they're going to roll with it. But most times, leaders are, you do this. I told you to do this, so you're going to do it. And then there's a resentment because they have their own personal reservations. So if you have someone who's not buying in, connect with them on an authentic level first. Let me get to know you. Let me understand you. Now that I understand you and you're shared with me, once you feel listened to, you're going to just, through sheer just reciprocity, you're going to start listening to me. And now we're going to meet each other at a more intellectual level and a soul level at the same time, which I guarantee you're going to have some buy in. But most times, people remove the human element of business because it gets broken down to sheer numbers, analytics, and, you know, KPIs.
One of the things that you and I previously talked about is burnout in business. I'm formulating some thoughts here but I wanted to hear, your perspective on, how all of this feeds into, again, some of that culture where you have burned out employees, or burned out employees that aren't, buying into, the conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's still that always ties into culture of connecting. If you have burned out employees,
You're not connecting.
yeah, you're not connected with them, and you're probably overworking them in a way that, because if they're feeling energized on a more personal level and work is a fun place to go to, they're they're not going to be burned out because they're going to enjoy going somewhere, and they're actually going to gain some energy going, instead of every time I go to work I get drained because I'm told that I'm not working fast enough, I'm not working hard enough, and I need to do more. Now I just continue feeling like I'm not enough. We need to empower our organizations. I was going to say subordinates, but I really hate that word.
It's not a great word.
Yeah, I don't like the feeling of, oh, you're under me. We're part of a team. So helping people realize that, hey, we're part of a team and we're all one. But burnout normally happens when people aren't feeling connected to, and then they start searching for somewhere else. And people don't leave companies, they normally leave their leaders.
Absolutely.
If they have a good leader, they'll stay. Doesn't matter what the compensation is, because the leadership and the feeling that they get is a very fulfilling feeling to work on that team. So that's very important, that it's a part of your culture and the way you operate with your people.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct on, people leaving the leader. I don't pat myself, well on my back, but I have had employees that have followed me from company to company because they wanted to work for me. They knew how, I led, and I'm very much a servant leader. So I, may not have used all of, the authenticity and purpose, but I have very much led from the rear, making sure that I'm supporting, my staff to make sure that, they have what they need for their success, because I can't be successful if they're not successful. And too many leaders get into this competitive um, thing, with their staff, where there is no competition. You are, one entity, and if you're competing with the people that are helping you succeed, you're just, it's almost like chopping off your hand.
Yeah, I agree. And you made me smirk when you were speaking, because when you said we are one entity, it is, I tie that into our culture too. We're all one.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important because, I mean, just to be honest, the big fear that my brother has in us scaling our company is fear that a
You're gonna lose.
we're going to lose clients because someone's going to come into the organization and not be very uh, trustworthy and leave with more than they gave back. But I really think that's a fear of scarcity, and
Mm-hmm.
I also believe that that won't happen just because I'm going to take my time hire slow, and I'm going to make sure that they're the right fit. It's not just giving expert level concierge manual therapy. I don't anyone We can train anyone to be expert in skills,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't train someone to be a compassionate
You
individual.
can't.
You can't train someone to connect with you on a real authentic level. I see anybody who's going to be in our organization, they're going to be part of my family.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to treat them like their family because that's how we're a family business, and I want them to feel that too, so they can get and receive that support that they might not receive in other places. A lot of times we don't know what people's lives look like, but if I can provide that in the workplace, I mean, you spend a very good amount of time at work when you look at your weeks. So if I can bring that level of fulfillment in a purposeful, I found my community kind of way, I'm sure that is not a fear to ever even entertain in my life.
So tell me, what is next for Jonah?
What's next for Jonah? Public speaking engagements, definitely.
TED Talk.
TED Talk.
We need to get you on a TED Talk, and I'll be your agent.
That'd be amazing. I was definitely looking into TED Talks, and I want to do that alongside as well. My wife has the same aspirations of putting herself out there and embodying a more outwardly personality that she has not had for most of her life. But I guess she's the first person my purpose has touched. Because she's definitely embodying her authentic self and putting herself out there in so many ways, and
That's
I'm proud
awesome.
of her. So definitely speaking engagements, retreats. I see us doing retreats definitely even for JIM, and making that a continued education course where they're also going to leave feeling purpose driven. So I get to tie in leadership, expert manual therapy, and connection with yourself. I like the idea of trademarking some Resonant Way. I really do see that being a big part of my life. I'm on a journey. I actually started documenting every single day. I'm on day 36, and I wrote it down. I think it was today or yesterday's journal, and I wrote 36. Feels like so long, but when I look at it as a number, this is so short. And then I consider I've been living on this earth for over 10,300 days. So day 36 is insanely small. But then I said, imagine a 10,000 days of this type of discipline, of this continued thought process, this mindset. What's next? What's going to grow out of that? And it got me really excited to even think those thoughts.
I think that you have a huge future ahead of you. So I commend you, and I want to watch to see how that all develops. But no one gets off the podcast without some actionable tips for our listeners. What do you have for our listeners today?
Well, listeners, go back and watch this whole thing one more time.
That's a great tip.
But I have three that I wrote down. The first one would be to audit your own business purpose. Because if you don't know your business purpose, or if it was made out of pure necessity and it wasn't made with emotion and you can't feel it, I want you to sit down and write it again and make it something that you can feel. Because then that ties into action tip number 2. Audit your culture. How is your culture? Is it like we said, or is your culture something that was crafted on its own, or were you intentional with building it? And I want you to look at your culture and figure out, what do I want my organization to feel like? Take yourself out of being the leader and imagine you're someone new joining the organization. How do you want them to feel, and how could you embody that? And action tip number 3 is priming your mindset. Every single day, do something that helps you stay in this vibration of authenticity. For me, it's a visualization practice every morning where I do anything really. As long as I do my visualization, I have different ideas that come to me, and it's so different than meditation where people think clear your
Right.
mind. It's let anything come to you, but connect with a feeling of gratitude and a feeling of abundance. But find what works for you and make that a daily practice. Be disciplined with it, and I promise you're going to see changes in your personal life that way.
Those are awesome. Um, So thanks for tuning into From Stuck to Scaled, and thanks to our guest, Jona Hernandez. This has been an incredible and truly impactful conversation that I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and suggestions for show ideas, and share the podcast with a fellow business owner who could benefit from listening. Scaling smart starts with taking action, but don't leave out purpose and soul. What's your why? What's your purpose? Staying true to your purpose can be as powerful and strong as a strategic plan. See you next time.
You've been listening to From Stuck to Scaled, Growth Strategies for Small and Mid-Sized Businesses, produced by Optocution LLC. For more information, tools, and resources, check out our website www.redefinepossible.co/podcast.